What's up, guys? Welcome back. In today's video, we are going to work on equipping our melee weapon. Now, you can have any type of axe that you want or whatever you want to use to chop up your wood or whatever. But for right today, this is what we're going to be working on today. So if I have equip my primary, secondary, melee, okay. So if I press 1, I have my primary equip, okay, and then my melee is on my side. Now if I press 3, now I have the melee equip, okay, and I can swing, I can walk around and swing. And you can also use this one too for, melee attack on NPCs or whatever. The same way we're gonna use it. Now if I push 2, equip the secondary. If I push 1 again, equip the primary. It's kind of like cycle through all three of the weapon that I have. Okay, so but there's a there's a downside to this. Okay, because guys, I'm not going to lie to you. I tried to record this video about 4 times. Okay, and for some reason um my recording software keep crashing on me, and it's not hard to do this, but it's just like it's tedious. I don't want to do it again for the fifth time. So hopefully this time it doesn't crash on me. So I'm going to show you exactly where I make the changes so that way you can just follow along. It's not too complicated, okay? It's pretty much repeating the same code that we have for equipping the primary and switching primary to secondary or secondary to primary, okay? So let's just take a look. So if I go to my player character on the weapon graph, okay, I have an input that I created, uh, equip melee, okay, this input right here. So we're gonna get the current melee weapon. So I don't know if I recorded this the last time, if we have this, but pretty much what it is I create a custom event, and I call it server spawn melee, and then I create a variable of the item info type, and then set it to a rep notify, and then inside of rep notify, I just get the melee info, and then I spawn an actor from class, get the class, and plug the yeah, and then set the value to current melee, and then attach it to my character, and then plug the unequip socket to the socket name, and then set can interact with the true. Okay, so that gives me um, the current weapon. Okay, so when you press the number 3, we check to see if the current weapon is valid, and then we play a montage. But we will get back to this montage in a little bit. Okay, so now I create another custom event, and then call it server equip melee. Set it to run on server, and I also create another one too called MC equip melee. It's inside of this node that I collapsed it to a node, but it's right here. So now from the server, and I call the MC equip melee. Okay. So now if we go inside, there you go. There go the MC equip melee. So the first thing we need to do, we need to check to see if the current melee we're trying to equip, or if the melee weapon we're trying to equip, if it's even valid. Now, if it's valid, we need to check to see if we have a primary weapon equipped. So we get is primary valid. You should already have this variable. It's primary and secondary. We check to see if it's valid. If it is valid, because we're trying to detach it from our hand, well, we set it to false. Okay, and then we get primary ref. We can also get it from the weapon ref. Primary ref, we get it, and then what we do, because we want to unattach detach it to from our hand, so we want to put it on our back. So what we do, we get primary, and we say attach actor to component, because we want to put it on our back. So, and then from the primary weapon ref, we get the item info, and then we break the item info. Okay, break item info, and then from that we only need the weapon info because we are looking for the unequipped socket name from the whatever weapon we are holding. So we get it from here, and then we plug it uh, to the socket name, and then we say snap to target for all three of these. And then from the primary ref, we need to get the skeletal mesh for the weapon. So we say get weapon mesh, and then we say attach component to component, and then we get the same name, attach it to our character, snap to target and everything. Okay, and we put it, we we plug this up. So now from the false of the is primary valid. Now we need to check to see well if we have a secondary weapon, and then make sure you plug the return value from attached component to component. So we get the variable is secondary valid. We get it. We do an if, and then we plug the true part, which is right here, coming out of here, true, and we also plug the false part. I mean, if we don't have a primary, well, let's check to see if we have a secondary. So if we do have a secondary, we do the same thing. Matter of fact, we can even do this to be sure. We can collapse this to make sure it's valid. No, leave it like that. Leave it like that. Because it didn't give me, I don't want to mess it up. It didn't give me any errors. So now we do a if statement to see if we to see if we have a secondary valid or equip. If we do, we set it to false, and now we get the secondary. We checking to see if it's valid. If it is valid, well, we want to do the same thing we did for the primary. So we get item info, weapon info, unequipped socket, and then we do attach actor to component. We get the skeletal mesh, attach component to component. Okay. And then now from the false, where we don't have a secondary. So from the false and the true, now we want to equip the current weapon, current melee weapon. So we get the current melee, we do the same thing, get item info, break it. Now because we want to attach it, we want to put it in our hand, so we get the equip socket this time. So we do the same thing again. Attach actor to component, snap to target in all three of them, get the skeletal mesh, and then we do attach component to component. Make sure you plug the false for the secondary weapon. Okay, make sure you plug it up here too. Okay, so after we finish that, we get current weapon ref. Okay, we say set current weapon ref, and then we set current weapon ref. We set our current melee to our current weapon. So whenever we have the melee equipped, now it becomes our current weapon. So and then we get we create a variable, new variable saying is melee slash pistol valid, and then we set it to true, and then we get the secondary. We set the secondary to true also. I don't know why I had to do this, but for some reason if I didn't set this, it didn't work. But trust me, keep it set secondary to true, and then um, call the server toggle character stand and set it to melee. So with that done, now if you have, for example, let's say if you have the primary secondary equipped, and then you pick up a melee and then you equip the melee. Now if you push 3, it should put the secondary back. And if you put 1, nothing can happen because we don't have a primary. But if you put 2, it put the melee weapon back, and then they equip the secondary. Same thing, it would do the same thing for the primary too. So if you have primary on you, okay, and you grab this, and then you equip primary, and then you push 3, put primary back, and then now you have the melee, and then you can still swing. We're gonna get to this, and then if you push 1 again, put melee back, and then now you have um, your primary in your hand. So now what we need to do, now we need to do the same thing we just did here when we switch in from primary to secondary, because we want to check to see, well, if we switch in from primary, where we want to make sure, because right now if we go here where it says node equip primary, I don't know if you collapse yours to a node, but I did, but it is that MC equip primary. We pretty much doing the same thing. We check in to see if primary is valid. If it is valid, we get is secondary valid, because we want to check to see if we have a secondary weapon, and then if we do, set it to false, and then we get secondary. Pretty much we're doing the same thing. We unequip the secondary, okay? And then on the false part of is secondary valid, well, now we need to check to see if we have a current melee valid. Okay, at first you would only have this part that's checking to see if the secondary valid, and then you just unequip it, and it will automatically equip your primary. But in between those two, okay, after we check to see if secondary is valid, if it's not valid, okay, we also plug it into the current melee and the return value. So with the current melee, we're doing the same thing: item info, weapon info, unequip, because we want to unequip it, because this is equipping the primary. Because if we already have a secondary, we want to unequip the secondary. If we have a melee, we want to unequip the melee. And then after that, on the true and on the false, okay, you want to get your primary and then continue doing the equip part, and then primary to true, and then set primary to current weapon, and then change it to rifle. And then also don't forget, and in the beginning where we check to see if the secondary is valid, we on the false, we drag it all the way across to this to equip the melee. Or if you don't want to drag it all the way across, you can just simply plug it here too. On the here, let me show you. Oop, double click this and just plug it here. And then we can just delete it. Let me see. Plug it up here. Yep, and then it will delete this. Okay. And then everything should still work the same way. So if we have primary, secondary, plug it up. It's working. This is working. Okay. And if we have melee, equip, push 3, boom. Everything should still be working fine. Okay. So we take, remember, on the second, is secondary valid? We check in to see if it's not valid, then we want to automatically check to see if we have a current melee equip. Okay, so we go up here. We check to see if we have a current melee equip. Now, if we don't have a current melee equip, well, we just want to equip the primary. So let's say, for example, if we don't have any of them equipped. So let's say right now we only have the melee. Press 3, boom, equip the melee weapon, because we don't have either the secondary or melee. So it just equip the primary. So if we go back to equip secondary, so we're pretty much doing the same thing. We go here, we check to see if the secondary is even valid. Now we want to check to see if we have a primary, because now we're trying to equip the secondary weapon. So if primary is valid, we set it to false, and then we're doing the same thing. When we get primary, we unequip the primary. Just remove these. We unequip the primary, put it on our back, and then from the false on where it check to see if primary is valid, we do the same thing. We just attach it to this line where we check in to see if we have the current weapon, current melee, I mean. We unequip the current melee, okay? And then uh, we get secondary weapon ref, and then we attach secondary weapon ref to the equip socket. So basically, you just put it in between those two. Same thing we did with the primary, okay? And then here you set, this should still be the same, and then you change it. So now you will have this. And if if it didn't work for you, and I'm gonna tell you why, when you push the button 3, if it didn't work, it's because on the montage, okay? Because if I didn't play the montage, right, I could have simply call server equip melee, okay? If you do this, it will still work, okay? So as soon as I pick up the melee, it just won't play the animation, boom, okay? That will still work. But the reason why we have the play montage, it's because, okay, so here you can duplicate the, let's see, yeah, duplicate the equip primary, right? What is this? Equip primary. Okay, let me delete this because I don't need this. Duplicate the equip primary, or whichever one it is, duplicate it and call it melee equip or equip melee. Make sure you double click it and remove this. Delete this. Okay, you delete this and then you add a notifier. Okay, add new notifier and call it equip melee. You know, click new or call it whatever you want, equip melee, and then make sure you position it where you want it to be, just like we did when we were doing for the weapon. So let me go here. So, see, equip melee. So mine is right around 33. Okay, so as soon as it's about to grab the weapon, right there. Okay, so equip melee. Now we go to our blend space and use application, blend space, animation. Let me delete this and I'm gonna do it with you guys. So what you're gonna do, right click, equip, or whatever you call your notifier, equip melee. You want the event, anim notify, equip melee, and then you get a reference to your character, and then we say server equip melee or pistol. Okay, so now what's going to happen is when let me go, soon as it hit this, it's gonna shoot it's gonna send an event to the character to call this function here. Okay, so as soon as I put this equip, play the animation, but once they reach that notify, then they equip the weapon. And then right here where we're doing the fire weapon, okay, this is where we're doing the fire weapon. We're checking to see we get the current weapon, and then item info, weapon class. We switch it to see if it's what type of weapon it is, if it's a primary or secondary. Down here for the melee, um, whatever melee, yeah, this animation, okay, the swing animation, we just call play montage on the melee. This is the part after here. This is the part where we're going to do the sphere collision print string. Hit. Okay, let's just call it hit. So every time we swing our, because it won't happen if we have a secondary or a primary weapon. That print string won't happen because it only work for the melee. Okay. Now, if I go and have my melee weapon and equip it, now when I swing, it's a hit. So here, this is where we're gonna do the sphere collision to see what we hit. If we hit a character, we're gonna do some damage to the character. But if we hit a tree, then we're gonna add wood, or if we hit a rock, Because the way we're doing it is we're going to do the sphere collision wherever our camera is looking at. So if the camera is looking here, it's gonna do it down here. If it's looking up here, it's gonna do it up here. If it's looking all the way up, it's gonna do the sphere collision like that. So that way you can hit whatever or wherever the item is. Okay. So yeah. So in the next video, we're going to start working on um, the tree part. You can use any tree you want. You can get the one from the marketplace, the free mega scan one. It doesn't matter. You just need a tree. And then later on, have we're going to have a enum to check the item type that we are, or the damage type for the item we are hitting. Let's say, for example, if we have um, if we have our melee equipped, right? If we have the melee equipped, and then we hit a rock, well, this would be for wood stuff like tree and stuff like that. So it would give you some rocks, but it won't give you a lot. It'll probably give you like one every swing. But if you have a pickaxe, now that's the proper melee that you need to get rocks. Then when you hit it, it will give you like 10, 15, like that. Okay. So that's it for this video, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.